In the 1950s, a mezcal producer needed a way to make cheap bottles fly off the shelf, so they dropped a moth larva into the bottom of a bottle and let a myth do the rest of the marketing for the next 70 years. That's not the strangest lie you believe about alcohol. It's barely in the top 10. 30 more, starting now. 1. A cold beer feels like the obvious cure for a hot day, something that cools you down from the inside the way water does. Alcohol is a vasodilator, meaning it widens blood vessels near your skin and makes you feel warmer, not cooler, while doing nothing to lower your actual core temperature. That flushed, refreshed feeling is circulation, not cooling. You're not beating the heat. You're just distracted from it for 20 minutes. 2. Red wine headaches get blamed on sulfites almost automatically, the same way any wine-related discomfort gets pinned on whatever ingredient sounds the most chemical. White wine actually contains more sulfites than red, and the compounds more consistently linked to red wine headaches are tannins and histamines. The sulfite story survives because it's the one warning printed on the label, not because it's the one actually causing the problem. 3. Ordering the house wine because it's cheaper than a cocktail feels like the financially responsible choice at a bar. House wine markups are frequently steeper than liquor markups, since bars buy in bulk at low cost and priced by the glass at a premium few customers ever question. The safe choice is often the one with the widest margin, not the smallest one. 4. A shot glass gets treated as a fixed, standardized unit, the same everywhere, easy to count and track. Shot glass sizes vary meaningfully by country, bar, and even glass style, with some pours running nearly double others. Counting drinks by shots assumes a consistency that doesn't actually exist behind the bar. 5. Sticking to just beer all night feels like the moderate, low-risk choice compared to liquor. A pint of strong craft beer can carry more alcohol than a standard shot of liquor, especially with the rise of high ABV IPAs and imperial stouts. The category people trust as gentle has quietly gotten stronger while the reputation stayed the same. 6. Bartenders get treated as reliable judges of who's had too much, trained professionals with a practiced eye for intoxication. Studies observing real bar service have found staff correctly identifying visibly intoxicated patrons only a small fraction of the time, often continuing to serve people well past the point most outside observers would call obviously drunk. The trained eye isn't as trained as the job title implies. 7. Pairing red wine with red meat and white wine with fish gets treated as an unbreakable rule of civilized dining, something you'll be silently judged for getting wrong. The rule originated as a general guideline based on typical flavor intensity, not a rigid law of chemistry, and professional sommeliers routinely break it for dishes where the wrong pairing works better. The rule exists to sound authoritative, not because ignoring it ruins your palate. 8. Craft beer gets assumed to be lower in alcohol than mass-market lagers because it feels artisanal, small batch, somehow gentler. Many craft beers, particularly IPAs and stouts, run significantly higher in ABV than mainstream lagers, sometimes 2 to 3 times higher. The word craft describes the brewing process, not the strength of what's in the glass. 9. Letting a bottle of red wine breathe by uncorking it an hour before serving gets treated as a mandatory ritual for any respectable dinner. The surface area actually exposed to air through a bottle's narrow neck is tiny, and most of the beneficial aeration effect people are after happens far faster and more effectively by simply swirling the wine in the glass. The hour of waiting is theater, not chemistry. 10. Getting drunk faster on an empty stomach gets explained as alcohol having nothing to compete with, as if food and alcohol are racing for your attention. Food, particularly fat and protein, slows gastric emptying, which slows how quickly alcohol reaches the small intestine where most absorption happens. It's not competition. It's a physical delay in the pipeline, and removing that delay is exactly why drinking on an empty stomach hits harder. 11. Champagne gets treated as inherently more likely to cause a hangover than still wine, blamed specifically for its bubbles. Carbonation does speed up alcohol absorption slightly by increasing pressure in the stomach, but the effect on total hangover severity is minor compared to how much you actually drink and how quickly. The bubbles get blamed for a math problem that was never really about carbonation. 12. A top-shelf placement in a bar gets read as a quiet quality signal, the good stuff kept up high and out of easy reach. Shelf placement in most bars is a paid or negotiated position determined by distributor deals and profit margins, not a curated ranking of quality by the bartender. The bottles up top got there through a contract, not a taste test. 13. Rum gets assumed to be a cleaner spirit that produces less of a hangover than darker liquors like whiskey or brandy. Rum still contains congeners, the fermentation byproducts linked to hangover severity, and dark rum in particular contains levels comparable to whiskey. The lighter reputation comes from rum's association with tropical drinks, not from anything measurably gentler in the bottle. 14. Ordering wine by the glass gets treated as the more moderate, controlled choice compared to committing to a full bottle. Standard pour sizes for wine by the glass frequently run smaller on paper than what's actually poured, and studies on self-poured drinks consistently find people underestimate their own pour sizes by a meaningful margin. Moderation by the glass assumes a portion control that bartenders and home pourers alike rarely maintain. 15. Gin gets a reputation as a sad or emotionally heavy liquor, supposedly more likely than other spirits to trigger a melancholy mood. There's no pharmacological mechanism by which gin, chemically ethanol-flavored with botanicals, produces a different emotional effect than vodka or any other clear spirit. The mood associated with a particular drink is cultural mythology, not chemistry, projected backward onto whatever's in the glass. 16. Craft cocktails with fresh ingredients get assumed to be inherently lower in sugar than a simple mixed drink, healthier by virtue of looking more sophisticated. Many craft cocktails use simple syrup, liqueurs, and fruit purees that add substantial sugar, often more than a basic rum and diet soda. The garnish and the glassware imply restraint that the actual recipe frequently doesn't deliver. 17. Vodka sodas get treated as the automatically low-calorie, responsible drink order, a clean choice compared to anything sweeter. That's genuinely one of the lower-calorie standard drinks, but the myth breaks down when people assume low-calorie means won't get you drunk as fast. The alcohol content is identical to any other vodka drink of the same pour size. Fewer calories was never the same thing as less alcohol. 18. Whiskey neat gets treated as the most pure or unadulterated way to drink alcohol, superior to anything mixed or diluted. A small splash of water actually opens up aromatic compounds in whiskey that stay locked down at full strength, which is why professional whiskey tasters routinely add a few drops before evaluating a pour. The purist's insistence on neat is a style preference, not the objectively correct method the tone implies. 19. Dark and stormy nights of heavy drinking get blamed for producing worse memory blackouts, specifically because of mixing different types of alcohol. Blackouts are primarily driven by how quickly blood alcohol concentration rises, which depends on total volume and speed of consumption, not on how many different categories of liquor were involved. The mixing gets blamed because it's memorable. The actual cause was just drinking too much too fast. 20. A designated driver ordering just one drink over several hours gets assumed to be safely under the legal limit by the time they're ready to drive. Blood alcohol concentration depends on body weight, metabolism, food intake, and time elapsed, all of which vary enough that just one drink can put different people on opposite sides of the legal limit. There's no universal safe number, only a calculation most people are guessing at. 21. Sangria gets treated as a light, fruit-forward drink, gentler than a straight glass of wine because of all the fruit floating in it. Sangria is typically wine fortified with additional brandy or liqueur plus added sugar, frequently landing at a higher effective alcohol content per glass than plain wine. The fruit garnish creates an impression of lightness that the actual recipe directly contradicts. 22. Tequila specifically gets blamed for causing more aggressive or erratic behavior than other spirits, treated as uniquely capable of flipping someone's personality. There's no chemical basis for tequila-producing behavior different from any other alcohol at equivalent doses. The effect comes from cultural expectation and the context in which tequila tends to get consumed, often quickly, in shots, at the start of a night. The bottle isn't the variable. The drinking pattern around it is. 23. A hangover getting progressively worse with age gets explained as your body simply getting weaker or losing its youthful resilience. Liver enzyme efficiency does decline somewhat with age, But a larger factor is that body water percentage decreases as people get older, meaning the same amount of alcohol becomes more concentrated in a smaller fluid volume. It's not weakness. It's a straightforward change in body composition doing exactly what physics predicts. 24. Adding an olive to a martini gets treated as purely aesthetic, a garnish with no real function beyond tradition. Salt from the olive brine can measurably affect the perceived smoothness of a strong spirit by altering how bitterness and alcohol burn are perceived on the tongue, a real sensory effect bartenders have long understood even without naming the mechanism. The garnish is doing actual sensory work, not just standing in the glass for decoration. 25. Ordering the same drink you always order gets treated as a safe, predictable choice with a consistent effect every time. Bartenders vary enormously in pour consistency, and studies measuring self-poured and bartender-poured drinks both find significant variation even among people who believe they're being precise. The drink might be the same name every time. The actual dose rarely is. 26. Beer's carbonation gets blamed for causing bloating specifically, treated as uniquely gassy compared to other alcoholic drinks. Any carbonated beverage, alcoholic or not, produces similar gas-related bloating, and much of what people attribute to beer specifically is actually the combined effect of large liquid volume plus salty bar food eaten alongside it. Beer gets blamed for a symptom that has very little to do with beer specifically. 27. Sweet dessert wines get assumed to be lower in alcohol than dry wines because they taste lighter and less harsh going down. Many fortified dessert wines like port or sherry actually run higher in alcohol content than standard table wine, with the sweetness masking rather than indicating the strength. The easier a drink is to swallow quickly is sometimes exactly the reason it deserves more caution, not less. 28. A responsible 1 drink per hour pacing rule gets treated as a guarantee that you'll never become noticeably intoxicated regardless of how long the night runs. The liver processes alcohol at a roughly fixed rate, but that rate varies by individual, and a full night of steady 1 per hour drinking can still accumulate to a significant blood alcohol concentration for many people well before the night ends. Pacing helps. It was never a mathematical safety guarantee. 29. Craft breweries get assumed to use more natural ingredients than mass-market brands, implying a purer, less processed product overall. Ingredient lists for many craft beers are comparable to mass-market beers in terms of additives and processing aids used during brewing. And craft refers to production scale and independence from large conglomerates, not ingredient purity. The word craft describes who owns the brewery, not what's dissolved in the tank. 30. The comfortable assumption underneath everything on this list is that if a rule about drinking sounds confident enough, repeated by enough people at enough bars, it must have been checked by someone who actually knew what they were talking about. Most of these rules trace back to marketing, superstition, or a plausible-sounding guess that outlived the person who first said it. Nobody was checking. Confidence isn't the same thing as accuracy, and a bar full of people repeating the same wrong answer doesn't make it a fact. It just makes it a popular one. Which one of these did you already believe? Drop it in the comments, and if enough of you argue about the same one, that's next video.